I am Leslie Bala. I am the media manager here at Bethany Global University, and I'm going to be inviting Autumn, who is an intern going through our 16-month internship program overseas, for an interview where we'll hear about her experience. She should come in. There she is. Hi, Autumn.
Hey, how are y'all?
I'm doing good.
Good.
It looks like we got a bunch of people who are watching and waving and loving us, so that's always confidence boosting.
Yeah, it's good.
How is it where you're at?
It's really good. It's morning time. Y'all are joining me for my coffee right now, but doing well.
Nice. Now, I didn't tell them where you're at. I figured that I'd leave that for you to kind of give us an intro. So maybe just share a little bit about who you are, where you are on internship, and maybe why you chose to go there.
Yeah, so my name is Autumn. I am from Texas, the Dallas area, if you're a Texan. And I'm currently living in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So that is where my internship site is. And there's a lot of reasons I ended up deciding to go here, but pretty much the main big one was just God was like, yep, this is where you're supposed to be. And there was a lot of different things that were involved in that. Part of that was he really has put on my heart interest in working with women who have been involved in human trafficking, and that's a big thing that happens here in the red light district. And so whether I was able to work directly with that or not, I knew I would be able to learn more about the realities of that and what's happening and how to fight against that while being here. So that's part of why I came here.
And has that been a part of your experience so far?
It has been. It's looked different than, I didn't really have any expectations for it because I knew I might not be working with that specifically, but I have been learning a lot about just the realities of how women get involved in that here and what happens. And then some of my ministries is helping prevent women get involved in that more than taking women out, just the prevention end.
So what does that look like?
Yeah, so my ministry is two different things that work together. So the first part where the prevention really comes in is I work at a safe home for at-risk women who've become pregnant, and we really want to encourage them to be able to keep their child and take care of them and get a good job, where it's really encouraged here that if you have a pregnancy before you're married, they really want you to either abort the baby or put it up for adoption, or they just don't want that to happen, and it brings a ton of shame into their community, and they just totally reject the women. So we encourage them to keep that child, and so at the home, we work and teach them life skills, just help them kind of get on their feet in different areas. And then I also work at a nursery that once these women end up working and doing life more, they can have their kids come to the nursery and have care for the day. And also other children in the surrounding community, they come while their parents are at work. Otherwise, their parents would just have to leave them at home. And that's really common here. Even for like a 2-year-old, they just leave them at home if they have to work. And so this way they can have a place to be.
They'll leave the 2-year-old like at home alone?
That's what I've heard. If I am wrong, then I might be, but that's what my sources have told me. And so it's just,
well, I know people in other cultures can do things out of desperation. We do it too. We just don't talk about it as much in America. If you leave your child at home to go to the grocery store, you just don't tell people because they'll freak out. So
exactly.
Yeah, when you're in a hard situation, you're in a hard situation.
Exactly. So it's really good to give them that opportunity so the kids can get cared for. And then also it's really just preparing them for school too, and they get to learn some English, and they also just get to learn like how to brush their teeth and different things like that. It's fun.
Nice. And you just started ministry, right? Like you're what, a month or two into it now?
This is our second month of ministry. So we started in January, towards the beginning.
So what has it been like adjusting to life in another country?
It's been different. I think I expected a bigger culture shock, and while that's still there, and of course I've only been here for 5 months, so there's, I'm sure, plenty of culture shock to come. A lot of it has been in just the little things, like you'll go to the store and you're like, okay, I know I need yogurt. I know there's options for yogurt here, but you don't see Yoplait and all the things you recognize, and you're not like, you don't have any concept for what's maybe like something you'd like or not, and you're like, so that's been weird, kind of figuring out just things, everything looks different in the smaller ways too, rather than the big things you're expecting.
Right.
or going to a place and like finally finding the laundry detergent but not being able to read what it says and being like, is this what I need? So those are all kind of shopping things. That's been an odd adjustment, like going to the store, but a lot of little things too that I guess I just wasn't anticipating, but it's cool too.
Has there been anything that you've like noticed about the Thai culture that's kind of like different or took you aback or anything like that?
Not in like major ways or necessarily in bad ways. They're definitely things. One thing that I wasn't expecting was driving on the other side of the road. I guess I just had this concept of like, oh yeah, in European cultures that happens, you know?
Yeah.
But then I got here and I was like, oh, they drive on the other side of the car and it's on the other side of the road. So that was a big one, and it didn't take terribly long to get used to. And now it's pretty normal, and I don't like, it doesn't surprise me. One of my teammates was watching a show the other day and they drove on the other side of the road. She's like, why are they driving the wrong way? Like, she literally it took her a second to be like, oh wait, it's normal for us. And yeah, that's one thing. There's other things too, just about the culture that I have taken getting used to. Like, so whying is when you're like, you like have your hands like this and you like bow to greet or say sorry sometimes or to say thank you. But it's taken me a long time to adjust like who to why and when, because there's some like clear cut things of like people who are older than you or people who you have a close relationship with, or like government officials or different things. But I didn't know you were supposed to why like a doctor because they're so respected, and so like I didn't, and I probably really offended them. So getting used to that, or like your barista will why you, or a kid will when you're working, but you're not supposed to like respond with a why, and sometimes I do, and it's just really awkward, and I'm like, oh, I know that's not what I was supposed to do. So like getting used to those things that we don't do in America.
Why will a barista why you? Is it because you're their customer, or is it because okay, so
Yeah,
it's not
just,
because you're like a white American or something and they just
no,
okay,
it's just a business thing, like a formality.
gotcha. That's cool. I always think it's funny that it's called whying.
Yeah.
And then you're asking when you do it. So it's like, why should I do it? And what's it?
And
It's
when.
funny to me.
In my papers, when I like, we'll do classes on our classes online, and we'll write about what we're learning and different things. And when I talk about the why, I'm always like, WAIING, and I like, it's always weird to type, and you're like, whying or when to. So yeah.
Gotta love cross-cultural joined papers still in English, but using the language that you're also learning there.
Like trying to figure out how to spell it in English, and you're like, this is weird. Yeah.
Have your classes been helpful at all as you've been diving into the culture?
I especially like my Bible classes are one thing that I really, really like. Just seeing how, like last semester we did Philippians, and then this semester we did James, and just seeing how they, obviously there's been a plan and people are smart, but seeing how they line up with where we're at and what we're learning, and just finding joy when there's difficult things, and just working on unity within your team and the body of Christ and different things like that, and how they line up so well. And I've really even enjoyed doing my homework. Like, of course, it's still homework, but being really just gaining a lot from what I'm doing. And then also the cultural things, just making sure we sit down and have time to see what the differences in our culture are, and how a marriage might look, or a like dating relationship in this culture. Other different topics we walk through has been awesome to see things that we might observe, but making sure we actually take a point to learn and ask people who live here about them.
Yeah. Has there been any like difficult things about the Thai culture for you, or is there just things that you love about the Thai culture, or mix?
Yeah, it's a mix. I'd say I really do love the Thai culture. Like, the people are so kind and welcoming, and you hear all these things about like the land of smiles, and it really is true. And there's different levels to the realities of that, but I've felt very at home here, and I think that's part of just being like, God called me here, and so he worked that out. And there are parts of the culture, I think like the language is the hardest part for Thai culture, because you want to learn things about it, but it's a very complicated language, and so I think that's been the biggest adjustment to Thai culture, because sometimes I just can't get as involved as I'd like to in areas until I learn how to speak certain things. And there are people who know English a little bit, so that is really helpful. But I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges in relation to that.
So can you explain how the Thai language is complex? Because I know it's very different than English.
Yeah, so the letters are completely different than the normal alphabet. Um, if I encourage you to be able to look up like what the Thai alphabet looks like, but there's, I think, like 47 letters and 20 something consonants and like 5 different tones and all these different things, and they all play into one another. So like the classic example you hear is like ma, 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 like all these different, and I don't have them all down, but like one means dog, one means doctor, one means pot. There's other ones, and then like cow, 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 like one means rice, one means news, all these different things, and you're like, I can't hear the difference. And even this week, I'll be like asking people I know, and I'm like, can you say the difference for me? And they're saying it, like, I try and say it, I'm like, nope, I'm not getting it right, but you still are trying to work towards it. So it's fun once you do get it. It's a huge success. But it is a challenge because we just had to start from scratch and be like, we have to learn the whole new alphabet and all these letters that are totally different. And you're like, bo by mai, and you're like, what is that? That's why I think it's a bigger challenge with the language specifically here. But it is an awesome sense of accomplishment once you do get a hold of things.
Do you have any like language stories or anything like that? Have you gained anything funny or awkward or even just a victory?
There's things, well, one thing I found out yesterday, so there's a food here that we love to eat. It's probably one of my favorite foods, but it's called gaprao, and I really love it. It's like a rice dish. It has pork, all this stuff. And I found out yesterday that people in my ministry kept saying grapao, grapao, which is how I usually say it. And I was like, what are they talking about? And they were talking about the backpacks. And I was like, okay, well, they can't be saying the same thing, trying to figure out how to say this word. I had my Thai lesson right after, and I was trying to ask her, I was like, how do you say backpack? And she's like, oh, it's this. And I was like, that's exactly how I've been saying this dish. And she's like, oh, that's not right. It's gaprao. Like, the words were very similar. And I found out that this whole time I'd been ordering a backpack instead of the actual food, which I'm sure wasn't a big deal because I knew what I wanted, but it was very awkward to find out. And I was like, wow, I've been doing this for 5 months. And it was one thing I was very confident in. And then I was like, oh, nope, just kidding. Or just, a lot of days not having the language for things I need. It causes some awkward but funny situations, and you're like acting out what you need to do at work because you're like, well, I need to figure this out, but I don't know what to say, so I'm going to use charades.
Yep. What have you eaten anything strange?
Not super strange. We did have like a team challenge when we first got here, and part of that was eating mealworms, but I did that, but not any specifically weird foods here. They have tons of them, like in the markets I'll see like scorpions on a stick, and I'm like, I think I'm good. Like maybe if somebody told me I needed to, I would try them. Or they have these things like sea grapes. I don't really know what they are, but they look like little like Orbeez, and they're like jelly and they're green and little, and I see them around, and I'm actually really curious to try them, but I haven't convinced myself yet. So I have plenty of options if I want to. But usually it's a lot of like rice or noodles and meat and vegetables and some mix of that assortment.
I can't think of what it's called now. I know I'll know the name when you say it, but what's that smelly fruit that everyone loves in Thailand?
Oh, durian.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's actually so funny. I was literally at a shop one time, and on the window it was like, no, like those signs that say like you have to have your shirt and shoes and all that, but it was like no durian in the shop. And it's weird to have to say like don't have a fruit in here, but it just smells so strongly that they like make signs not to have it in certain businesses and stuff.
Yeah, I've heard of that because it's a pretty strong smell. Have you eaten it? Have you tried durian?
I haven't yet. I think some of my teammates might. I can't remember who, but I know I need to try it just because I have to do it.
Well, if you ever do, you should share it with us. We'll share your experience and see what you thought.
Yeah, I'll tell y'all how it is. I hear that it's pretty funny to see how people react when they try it.
I think I did try it because I went to Thailand once and I couldn't get over the smell. And so I don't know if it actually tasted that bad or if it was the smell that was just influencing my taste buds. I wonder if I had I wondered if I had plugged my nose, would it have actually tasted good? I don't know.
Maybe I should try both and then keep you updated on whether it's just the smell that's terrible.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Someone said like a rotten egg. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, it smells like it too.
So maybe we'll see how it affects it.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta love the strange things that, especially at least I know in that part of the world. Do they eat bugs? Is that why they had you eat the mealworms? Like, is that actually a regular thing?
If you're in maybe like a hill tribe or something, it might be more normal to find. They had us just try it. Our team leader did it. It was like an amazing race challenge. It was like the first week we got here.
Yeah.
And so part of it was like if however many we ate got us more points, and so yeah, it was really just to kind of mess with us. She was like, "Oh, I wish I had worse bugs. Usually I have worse ones for you to try." But I was like, I still didn't love them, but that's okay.
So you said that's usually like in hill tribe. Why don't you describe more where you guys are? Because you said you're in Chiang Mai, but like for people who don't know what that means, like for Thailand.
So I live pretty much in the city. Hill tribes, so there's lots of mountains around where I am, and then this is kind of the city that is the main area. So even lots of people, there's like small tribes that live in the hills, the mountains, and it's a lot more remote. So sometimes if we go out and explore, sometimes we'll see people who live there, or even like I've gone and explored the mountains some, and there was a person from a hill tribe who like led us through because they actually knew where they were going and what was happening. So we are much more in the city life. And so people will come to get education here. They'll be sent by their families often. And that even plays into some of trafficking situations, people who are sent here from the hill tribe to be able to make money by their families, different things like that.
Yeah. So how do you get around since you're in the city? What's their normal way or your normal way of transportation?
Normally we have like motorbikes. We drive them around the city. It's a very popular way to get around here, mode of transportation, and it has been a fun learning experience. We started learning a few months into our internship, and they made sure we were all safe about it, had to get our license, all that good stuff. But I was honestly scary at first because people drive much more crazy than they do in the States, I guess. But now that I've learned how to drive it, it's fun because you can drive around with your team and you kind of feel like a little motorcycle gang when you're driving around the city together. But yeah, that helps us to get around because my ministry is even like half an hour away from where I live, so makes it possible.
Have you gotten a Thai tat yet?
No, thankfully not.
Because that's the motorcycle. That's what they call it. But it's like the little motorcycle. You hit the. Yeah. Is it the engine or the exhaust when it's hot or something?
I think it's the exhaust. So when you park your motorbikes, they're so close together that if you get off on the wrong side and you aren't careful and you walk by and someone who is like just parked there recently, it'll like burn your calf. I know my leader, she's got it. She's told us she's gotten one pretty bad. And so I almost got one time because I didn't know what I was doing and I was getting off her bike and she was like, "Oh my gosh, be careful. You don't want to touch that." And so, yeah, just basically a pretty gnarly burn on your calf.
Yeah, I do think I remember hearing about her getting that.
Oh, yeah.
So how are you have you been building relationships with any Thai people there?
It is a little bit of a challenge because of the language barrier and just where we only know a little bit right now. And we learn more every day, but just getting to that point of being conversational. But there are certain Thai friends who've been passed on from teams in the past, and the senior class that was before us, they passed on some of those relationships to us, and so we're getting to just go get coffee or food with them, and we've even made a friend or two on our own, and then other people we work with that we just get to know and build relationships with as we work with them. But that's been cool to get to meet people that they've known before and meet friends at church and different things too.
Yeah. And what about your team? Like, did you know your team really well before you went? Like, what are your relationships looking like now?
Yeah, each team member was different. So I was actually roommates with two different teammates. So one my freshman year and one my sophomore year. Each of them I was roommate with. And then, so there's six of us, four girls and then a married couple. And so, well, I can say their names, but Perrin and Morgan I knew a little bit before coming here. And then Kayla and Katie I was roommates with. And then Liz I didn't know very well. But you definitely get to know each other quickly, just being, especially in the first semester, like we're together all the time doing language learning, different things. So we have a lot of time together, and now we don't see each other as much because of ministry, but it's really fun just to be able to get to go and like do things together as a team, and kind of making sure you spend time intentionally with each other so that you can get to know each other better, the people that you maybe didn't know as well. Like we're even going on a trip to Chiang Rai, which is close by. I actually don't know really how close it is. I know it's near us, but we're going as a team just for fun to do some team bonding this weekend. So
what is the religion in Thailand, and what does that look like for the Thai people?
So the religion here is Buddhist, and a thing you hear all the time is to be Thai is to be Buddhist. So it really is just part of the Thai culture, so much so that it is actually interesting learning. Like we hear a lot of Christians or Americans are Christians, or whether that's really serious faith or just more nominal. But it's goes much farther here. It's part of who they are, and it's ingrained in their culture. And so it's very different, but you see monks all around and different things like that. But it here it's actually tied in with a little bit like animistic and Hindu beliefs, so it's really called like Thai folk Buddhism. So it's a little bit different than just like the pure or more focused straight of Buddhism, but that's the main religion here.
And how has that like been learning about it and learning how to interact with them? And
it's been really fun actually, because I didn't know much about Buddhism. I learned some in some of my classes, but you learn about a lot of religions, so you don't always learn like a ton about one, just more the broadness of it. But it's been really enjoyable just to learn like what the beliefs are, seeing different things in daily life and figuring out what they are. Like there's little spirit houses here. They're like little small pavilions that are outside of a lot of businesses or houses. And when I first got here, I was like, what is that? Sometimes they'll have little like figures in them, and they'll have food. And just learning like, oh, those are to like how they interact with the spirits and to keep good in and the bad out, and how they like feed them to appease ancestors or appease the spirits or different things like that. I don't know all of it, but I'm learning more. But it's really interesting just to learn how different it is, and then also to learn how the gospel maybe can pertain better to Buddhist people, and just learning that looks a lot different than how we usually would share the gospel. It's still the gospel and exactly what it is, but it's different people can be spoken to in a different way about God because of how they were raised. So that's been really fun to learn for me, just because it's all so new. And it's so different, but it's really beautiful just to see a people and their culture, and not just be like, oh, it's bad because it's different, but just learning that these people are lost and they don't know God, and these are things that have been in this culture for so long, and I'm not going to be one person and just come and fix it all, but I can still work in those friendships. And some of our friends are Christian and some of our friends are Buddhist, and they're friends that have been Thai people that many teams have known in the past, but we can still love them and just continue to build those relationships and show them Christ.
So when you were talking about ministry, you were talking about like working at the nursery and then working with the women who were having pregnancies and stuff. Is that the main ministries that you're doing? Or are you doing any other kind of ministry?
That's my main ministry. We have a few different options. So me and my roommate, we work in the same ministry, but there are other ministry options. One, my teammate, she works at a place called the Hug Project, and they really work on taking people who have been involved in sex trafficking, and a lot of times it's children too. Like they take them and allow them to have like a safe place to interview rather than having to have them go to like a court and testify against all this stuff, but have them come and play and go through therapy and do different things. And they work with a ton of organizations. I can't explain it all super well, but different like government organizations, both in the US and here, to be able to stop trafficking. And so she even was like, yeah, I had lunch with some police officers the other day because they were in there and they're doing not interviews, but working and trying to stop this. But they really head up that and have so many people involved in it. So she gets to work specifically in there. Some other teammates, they work in an after school kids ministry. So they are just playing with them, having a safe place for them to be. Also, that the focus really behind that is wanting these kids not to have to be involved in trafficking areas, because I don't know all of it behind it, but that's the real goal, to just have them have a safe place, and then also to be on the end of prevention there too with those kids. And then another one works at a safe home. They take in kids who have been involved in these situations, and they bring them in, have them this safe place to live, and often they're involved in their families and fostering and all that. So there's different options, but those are kind of what we work with at the moment. And that's our main ministry.
Okay. Very cool. So how would you say, I know you've only been there 5 months, which probably feels like a long time at this point, but also kind of short.
Yeah.
But how would you say so far, like this is, like you can already see that this is preparing you for like future missions or ministry that you could be doing?
Yeah, so a lot of it is right now, I was talking to my roommate about this last night, just sometimes it's being okay with the unknown of things. Because right now, a lot of the reason I'm here is just because God called me here, and that's all I know. And just even in day-to-day working with our ministries, a lot of what we do is in transition right now. So there's so many things always changing, and we're just having to be okay with, like, we might think there's something that's better or like a more smooth way to do something, and there's Thai people who are saying, no, this is how we're going to do it. And we have to say, well, they're in charge and they're leading. And we want the Thai people to be leaders in these ministries. And so having to just be okay with things changing and things being unknown, and even for the future, like, I don't really know what the Lord has for me right now, but just being okay with that, and just knowing that, well, in future ministry, there's going to be a lot of unknowns, just for what it is, but also in day-to-day life, like there's always transition, there's always change, and just kind of learning to be okay with that. And also learning that God really does work through it, even when we don't see what's happening, and just to keep showing up in daily life and being diligent with what you've been assigned, and that he will work through it, whether you see it directly or not. And sometimes you do hear about it later and you're like, oh wow, that's really awesome to see. And so I don't know exactly what he's doing right now or what he will for the future, but I know he's in control, and he really will work it out.
Yeah. Well, I think I've been sharing so much, but I think we'll call it at that. But thank you so much for just your honesty and sharing with us all of your very new experiences. Maybe we'll check in with you later on just to see how things are going, at least when you get back, for sure. I'll be checking in, but
look forward to it.
But yeah, thank you for doing this, for sharing, and we'll be sure to be watching and seeing how you continue to grow and learn more about the Thai culture.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to just see, like, again, we're very much babies in the culture still, just to see how God works as the time goes on, and just see what happens towards the end of things. So thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, bye for now.
Bye. Hope you all have
How do you say bye in Thai?
Oh, sawadee ka.
Sawadee ka.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so that was our interview with Miss Autumn. That was really cool. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did, even after I've been to Thailand, but I think it's always exciting to hear about people who actually live there. I only got to go for a couple weeks, so definitely living in a culture gives you a different experience. So thank you all for those who tuned in. I was loving all of your notes. I saw, I appreciate technically Samaritan, who helped us know that it tastes like a rotten egg. That was very kind of you to clue us into that, and all of the just encouragement. So anyway, we'll be having more of these in the weeks to come, so be looking out for them. And they're going to be all over the place because we're going to be meeting with people from all over the world. And so trying to find when we can correlate the time with them is a complicated thing. So just be watching, and we'll let you know when there's another one on the way. So bye.